Yeah, the TJ Conway roasting is going to be at the end of this panel, though, probably. I still have that essay where I put all of her worst quotes into the essay, and yeah, we're going to rip on those at the end. DJ Conway is not a good person, or was not a good person. Basically one of those uptight career pagan authors who hate everything to do with Dragonkind. Like, oh, you're not a real dragonkin, you can't, because you're a person, you're a human. Like, fuck you. Zippy. Understandable. Okay, let me go ahead and read off my script or find my script that I put together super last minute, even though I've been putting off this panel for 2 years now. I won't be looking at the chat until I'm done with everything on my script, so if anyone has any questions over the course of this panel, then I'll probably save them for later. Or not later, after the panel. Oh, and is anyone recording? Yeah, that's good. Yes, thank you. So I'll go ahead and start with this presentation as soon as Alptanok gets in the audience. Alptanok, Panini. Panini. Hold on, let me make sure I have everything in order. Obviously, this part can be cut out of the recording. I'm just being disorganized on the last day of the summit. No, I don't want to cut the whole summit. My lack of preparation this shouldn't affect the summit. Okay, here we go. So, greetings everyone, and welcome to the second to last panel that I will be hosting during the Draconic Summit Winter Solstice 2024. As always, it is truly a pleasure to see everyone here listening in, and I truly hope that everyone has been enjoying the Draconic Summit over the weekend. The topic of this presentation of mine pertains to the basics of Draconic spirituality, Draconic spiritual paths, and how to incorporate one's Draconity in their spiritual path. I will additionally be going into some basic detail about my Draconic spirituality and how I incorporate said Draconic spirituality in my daily human life and even in my indigenous culture. Much of the information I give regarding general Draconic spiritual paths in this panel will be very open-ended and more of a take this advice if you feel it is helpful to you kind of thing. It's always important to note that everyone's path of spirituality is different and unique, and I will never tell someone how they need to practice their individual path of spirituality. I will only give advice that I feel may be helpful or beneficial, and you don't have to take my advice. It's whatever you feel you're comfortable with taking, whatever you feel fits your Draconic spiritual path, or whatever. I am obviously not an authority on the subject of Draconic spiritual practices or Draconic entities. I am simply an individual who happens to be Draconic, who happens to work with Draconian entities, and is mated to Draconian guardians of mine, who guide my being through life upon this earth. Claiming oneself to be an authority on specific subject matters reads as self-centered. And by claiming oneself to be an authority, I mean, oh, I know everything about this topic and I'm the only authority and you have to listen to my advice or die, kind of thing. That's what I mean. And again, it's self-centered, and that's why I'll never claim myself as an authority on Draconic experiences, spiritual practices, other kind of spirit experience, or anything in general. I've just practiced Draconic spirituality for years and have gathered a lot of knowledge on practicing Draconic spiritual paths that I enjoy sharing with others when they ask my being. And yes. Wee wee. To begin, first and foremost, it is important to answer the question of what exactly is Draconic spirituality in order to set a clear notion throughout this presentation. A Draconic spiritual path is any form of spirituality, religious belief, and/or spiritual path that involves worshiping dragons, working with dragons, or believing in dragons in some way, shape, or form. The term I keep mentioning, Draconic, pertains to Draconic spirituality, and it's basically a fancy little term that I created to describe Draconity in the context of spiritual practices. There are an endless variety of ways to practice a Draconic spiritual path, and there is no one way to walk a Draconic spiritual path, despite what many ignorant people in the spiritual community as a whole will say. Everyone has different reasons for practicing a Draconic spiritual path, and that's perfectly understandable. I think that's what makes the spiritual community so unique. Ignore anyone who tells you that you need to follow a Draconic path a certain way, or if they try to force their advice on you. Just, those people are bad. Bad news, ignore them. Where did I leave off on my script? I always lose my place. Damn dyslexia. Draconic spiritual paths often involve worshipping dragons directly, working with dragon spirits and/or guardians, using what some call draconic magic, simply feeling draconic during rituals and wanting to imbue aspects of your draconity into your rituals or spiritual path, or just simply believing in dragons and/or asking them for guidance in rituals or daily life. Now, of course, what I just mentioned are only some common aspects of Draconic spiritual paths. I'm 1,000,000% certain that there are aspects of Draconic spiritual paths that are slipping my mind at this moment. And if I did miss something, which I know I did, feel free to let my being know in the chat what I missed, so all experiences can be covered. You do not have to do any of the aforementioned things I mentioned to follow a Draconic spiritual path, or for your spiritual path to be considered a valid Draconic one. You just do whatever feels most comfortable to you, and that's going to be a very common thing that I say throughout the course of this panel. Now, to describe my path of Draconic spirituality briefly, and why I'm even interested in the subject of Draconic spirituality to begin with, I follow Lunath spirituality. For those who don't know, Lunath is the divine celestial being that my non-human consciousness and spirit is a fragment of. Upon this earth, I am the Lyco-Draconic werewolf who is a fragment of her. I'm not actually Lunath, though I do adopt a lot of her traits, and I do follow her Draconic spiritual path. Let's see. She and Lunath and I both follow divine, non-perceivable, draconian creator divinities, 3 of them, that created our home multiverse and realms. I call them the Almighty Infinite One, who I consider who is the creator of the void, matter, creation, energy, that kind of thing. The Almighty Tempest One, Lord of the Sky, storms, the spirit realm, the aether, clouds. And the Almighty Volcanic One, who is the creator of the earth, fire, the abyssal realms, and the mother of souls. I honor them in daily night prayers. I honor them whenever it rains, whenever I look upon mountains, whenever I am in nature, and even whenever I receive a small blessing, such as food or when I receive a ritual item. I thank them for each and every blessing, since I know that they are the reason that I am here today, alongside Lunath. So I feel it's very important for my being to honor them in my everyday life, even when I don't exactly feel draconic. Even though I am in a constant state of draconity, sometimes I don't exactly feel non-human due to mental health reasons and whatnot. The proper way to practice my Draconic spiritual path upon this earth is to invoke my non-humanity and to essentially feel non-human while honoring the sacred Draconian 3, as I call to them, and to practice rituals in the dead of nature. However, unfortunately, these days I am not in an environment where I can properly practice my Draconic spirituality, since I am not close to nature at this moment, nor am I in an environment where I feel safe to truly express my non-humanity at the time of this presentation. One of these days, though. I also honor these Draconic creator divinities when I engage with indigenous spirituality and practices. For those who do not know, I am a traditional indigenous Mesoamerican dancer. My lineage is primarily indigenous Maya. And when I honor the Creator, Mother Earth, and Father Sky, three very important sacred figures in many indigenous cultures, I honor the sacred Draconian three by those names in said ceremonies. I feel it's important that even when I engage with indigenous human culture, culture that is entirely separate from my non-human culture, I feel that it's important to engage in human culture through the lens and in the sense, or taking into account non-humanity. It feels wrong to do so otherwise. I do honor my indigenous human heritage, though I am non-human, identifying first and foremost, and that is how it is always going to be. I'm a very non-traditional indigenous person, I know. Let's see, where am I at in my script? So my connection with eagles upon this earth, for those who don't know, eagles are very sacred, honored, revered animals in many indigenous cultures. They are the bird that flies closest to the creator. The eagle carries the prayers of the people on his wings to the creator. In many stories, the eagle is said to have much love for humanity, and he always watches over humanity. The eagle is not afraid to speak the truth. He's not afraid to speak how he feels. And most indigenous peoples want to follow the eagle, and we honor the eagle, as well as many other animals and figures in our spirituality, in our day-to-day life. And my connection with eagles upon this earth, as an indigenous person, is actually directly related to my connection with both Tezcatlipoca and my Lyco-Draconic werewolf soul Nurok. I'm actually holding an eagle feather right now as I speak. I touched it on my past panels this summit, though. Nurok had a strong connection with the black spotted eagles that scavenged from her kills, and Lord Tezcatlipoca is also associated with eagles, and I remember him being adorned with eagle feathers in many of my memories of him. By the way, my eagle feather's legally owned, so don't narc on my being. As I just spoke about, I honor Tezcatlipoca, or as I call him, Lord Tezcatlipoca. He is the ancient Mesoamerican sacred energy / god / divinity, however people describe him, of the smoking mirror and many other aspects, such as the north direction, the night, obsidian, jaguars, hidden knowledge, many aspects. He's associated with many aspects. Tezcatlipoca has actually appeared in many ancient Mesoamerican cultures, not just Aztec cultures. Tezcatlipoca is a Nahuatl name, honored by the Mexica, or as many of you know them, the Aztecs. Though Tezcatlipoca has appeared in other Mesoamerican cultures under different names. They're not coming to my being right now for some reason, though. If I remember later, I'll speak him in this panel. So Lord Tezcatlipoca actually approached my being a few months after I started engaging with Mexica / Mesoamerican ceremonies, since he was interested in my non-humanity and my ways of incorporating my non-humanity when engaging with indigenous culture. I mean, I know no other indigenous peoples who I identify, or not indigenous people, sorry. I don't know any other traditional indigenous dancers, traditional Mexica dancers, who identify as non-human in the way that I do. And Lord Tezcatlipoca noticed that. That's why I think he's interested in my being. That's why I think he approached my being. And that's why I think he continued to contact my being, even though I initially ignored his presence and just thought, oh, well, this is just another aspect of my schizophrenia. Though, when the feeling persisted, when it got stronger and stronger over time, and was not at all related to voices or delusions that I've had in the past, I just came to accept, okay, yeah, he's contacting my being. Something's going on. Anyways, Lord Tezcatlipoca actually helped my being to realize that I had a jaguar past life where I met him a few times. I honor both him and the sacred Draconian Three, and I know he has no issue with my being primarily practicing my Draconic spirituality in my earthen life. Mainly because I know he's very interested in my Draconic spirituality and my Draconity. So, as many of you all know, I am in contact with Lunath's soulmates and mine by proxy upon her home realms. They are my soulmates as well, since I am just another fragment, another part of Lunath, and my guardians say that they love and respect every aspect of my being. Due to my schizoaffective disorder, I am unable to speak to my guardians with words very efficiently, unfortunately. So we almost always communicate with Morse code like growling messages telepathically that portray their exact intentions. We do speak with actual words, though it is very rare and it's often in emergencies. When I do think that I speak to them with words, it's very often an illusion on my end, so I don't feel lonely, I suppose. Though, anyways, most who frequent the Celestial Spire and the Draconic Summit know some bits and pieces about my guardians, though I will refresh you all during the beginning of this presentation. I'm gonna take a quick water break. Like 2 seconds. Water's so good. A little interesting fact about water, since I brought it up, elements such as water are very important in indigenous human cultures, even in the ceremonies that I engage with. When we make a mamoshli, which is a Nahuatl word for altar, we always have something representing water on the altar because we recognize how important it is, and it's always ever present in our ceremonies. Yes, water is life. Though anyways, in the context of my guardians, referring to my guardians, I will first elaborate on the absolute love of my life, the great Nini, my most beloved, my astral guardian, teacher, and love, Altanak. His placeholder name, I don't know his actual name. It's pretty close to Altanak, though. It means like deathly void or something super dark and evil. He is a non-perceivable, divine, draconian being of the void. Since he is non-perceivable, I don't know exactly what he looks like, though he does speak to my being through intention, and I just have some... I got distracted, sorry. I have some vague recollection. Not vague recollection. I know what he looks like. Anyways, before I get too off topic and distracted. Altanak has many threatening and imposing names that are in our Draconic language associated with death, the void, and darkness, and he is far more intelligent than any human that has ever existed. I am boasting about him, yes. Even though Altanak is associated with all these harsh and evil, dark, powerful elements, he also shows both compassion as well as understanding regarding my living situation upon this earth, and just others in general, even though he's very prone to anger, very prone to irritation, and doesn't make friends very well at all. Altanak is incredibly strict towards my being, heavily encouraging my being to follow the laws. In the traditions of the Draconic, though, he is at the same time very understanding and very lenient with my being. I actually do need a very strict regimen in my life, since I often forget things. I need to be told to do things, and Altanak's there for my being, and I appreciate that. Altanak is very loving towards my being, though he does not have the capability to express much emotion. He's not like my being. He's not an emotional creature. Any emotion he feels is often very vague, often very non-emotional, I guess, for lack of a better word. His ways of communication, even through text on his own Discord account when he possesses my being, well, it doesn't actually possess my being, more like, it's hard to explain. It's some kind of possession, though it's not full possession, if that makes sense. He doesn't have the capability to express much emotion, so his ways of communication, even on Discord, when he semi-possesses my being, I guess, it's like he reaches his hand, spectral hand into my mind and controls my being. It's kind of weird. Anyways, he doesn't have the ability to express much emotion, as I said. I keep saying that for some reason. So his ways of communication often sound very cold, unenthusiastic, and blunt. So he often sounds like he's being rude or something when he's actually not. He just doesn't have the capability to express emotion very well. And as many of you know, even though he doesn't really have the ability to experience much emotion, he's uncharacteristically enthusiastic about things like the workings of the universe, science, mathematics, heavy metal, philosophy, anything that has a ton of knowledge attached to it, I suppose. Anything that someone with a PhD and 200 plus IQ would find easy to understand. And he also loves quail for some weird fucking reason, and he always talks about how much he loves quail. Anytime there's a bird outside, he says, Lunat, look, a quail. He's actually so happy with my being connecting with eagles. It's like, Lunat, you are connecting with the quail. How wonderful. He's pretty goofy despite everything, though, regardless. I'm getting off topic. So again, as I mentioned before, upon this earth, I suffer from a severe mental illness by the name of schizoaffective depressive type. This makes any kind of communication, telepathic, symbolic, astral, etc., incredibly difficult due to the severe mental symptoms that I experience on a daily basis. Hence why Altanach and my other guardians only speak through a, whatchamacallit. Sorry, there's a ton of noise in my house right now. I need to focus. I'll draw on this eagle feather to focus. That's why we do the Morse code clicking thing. So, Altanach understands that I struggle with this, and he does not force my being into rituals, introspection, or ceremonial communication. He only reminds my being that it's important for my being to engage in these rituals to truly feel fulfilled as a Draconic identifying individual such as myself. And I do appreciate that. I need to get good. As you all know, I often communicate his words and intentions through his own personal Discord account, Aleph Null, as he wishes to interact with people upon this earth in a more direct way. He doesn't make connections, he doesn't make friends, though he does enjoy hearing stories, he does enjoy having the occasional interaction with others, and is appreciated, especially since he's always in the pursuit of gathering knowledge, even if it's in the interest of not mathematics or any academic subject, though just hearing about the lives of others. He's always on the pursuit of knowledge, and always on the pursuit of quail. When Altanach speaks on Discord, he is noticeably more intelligent, detailed, and composed with his wordings than I am, as you all know. He types out things that I could never even begin to think about or type out, especially when I truly invoke him. So it's a really, really interesting experience. Though anyways, another Draconian Guardian that I consult with goes by the name of Volentile. You all know him. He breaks practically every single preconceived notion regarding Draconic Guardians, as well as dragons in general. He is incredibly vulgar, aggressive, and always willing to engage in intimacy. Draconic dungeon behavior, essentially. I'm not going to go into that, though. You all know what I mean. He chooses to masquerade as the character Madara Uchiha by my request, which defines him as a thought form. As a neurodivergent person upon this earth, I recognize that I attach a lot to fictional concepts, and Naruto is my absolute favorite series. Madara Uchiha looks pretty similar to Volentile's actual humanoid form, so we decided to essentially play pretend, since it's very beneficial to my mental health, and it's a lot of fun. And I appreciate him doing that. Volentile is actually a skull-faced draconic being who has the ability to shapeshift into a humanoid form. He's not actually Madara Uchiha, we're just playing pretend. While he is a very intelligent being, he also holds no issues with starting arguments, especially with Altanach. He has no issue with loudly expressing himself or mocking anyone who does him wrong. Volentile is entirely unconcerned with how others feel about him, whether said feelings are positive or negative, though I make sure he holds his damn tongue when he's at the summit or the spire. As with Altanach, Volentile also speaks on Discord with his own separate account, for the same reasons as the rest of my guardians. When Volentile speaks on Discord, he is noticeably more abrasive, neutral, and quick to respond to specific situations. And one of the more subtle and calm Draconian Guardians that I have contact with is Alkanath. He is incredibly calm, organized, and uninfluenced by emotions such as anger, frustration, or fury. Alkanath is an entity who does not believe in letting the influence of negative feelings affect him. He doesn't believe that the influence of negative feelings when speaking does any good for anyone, so you'll never see him venting. You'll never see him talking in a negative light or anything like that. He chooses to masquerade as the character from Naruto, Tobirama Senju, for the same reasons I mentioned before, defining him as a thought form in the same way as Volentile. And I appreciate it. I love playing pretend. Now, though, to talk about my general advice on my Draconic spirituality, since I've already rambled enough about my my spirituality as a whole, beginning to walk a Draconic spiritual path can be difficult, especially when an individual has little prior experience with practicing a spiritual path or has little knowledge regarding how exactly to practice a spiritual path. The absolute best advice I can give anyone is to be patient with yourself as you discover your spiritual path. It all takes time. Some discover their spirituality and what works for them best more quickly than others, though just be patient with yourself. Not all the secrets are not going to arrive to you immediately. You're probably not going to settle into the best routine right away, like within a day or so. So just be patient. That's the best advice I can give you. Be patient, experiment with ritual objects, meditation techniques, ways of contacting spirits, anything that you feel you have the wish or drive to do so as you practice your Draconic spiritual path. Finding what techniques or rituals fit best with your individual Draconic spiritual path can be just as difficult as uncovering the basics of your beliefs of your Draconic spiritual path. So experiment with different rituals, experiment with different offerings, different ritual items, wordings to spirits, gods, or guardians, and ways of maintaining focus. And again, it may take a lot of time, so just always be patient with yourself as you figure out what works best for you. If you are already in the process of contacting a dragon, guardian, spirit, or being, and you have not yet received any signs or responses you feel are notable, that is okay. I'm going to say this a lot over the course of this presentation, though it all takes time. Perhaps your dragon, guardian, or spirit is telling you that you need to find different ways of practicing or contacting them. Maybe they're simply not ready to reach out to you yet. Maybe they feel that contacting a different dragon, guardian may be more beneficial to you. It's whatever you feel is right, and do not be discouraged if it takes time to receive more, I suppose for lack of a better word, substantial communication or signs from the dragon you are attempting to contact. If you are already in contact with a dragon, guardian, and you have not already, ask them what they're comfortable with in regards to working with them, whether that includes giving offerings, praying to them, honoring them in ritual, or asking them what they wish you to do before ritual. If you don't receive any response from them, then just do what you feel is best. Do whatever your heart tells you to do. Whatever you feel, whatever you and them feel is most comfortable or most fitting for your spiritual path is what you should do. Now, it is important to mention that you should always find the right spirit and or guardian to work with, and do not be afraid to push them away or banish them from your presence if they are actively detrimental to your mental health, your mood, or if they are just a generally negative presence in your life. It's incredibly important to find a Draconic guardian that is kind, understanding, and respectful of your time and energy levels. Spirits and guardians are just like people. You need to keep good company and choose who you keep in your social circle. Spirits and guardians, just like people, can choose to be harmful and malevolent. They can choose to be disrespectful and an active nuisance in your daily life, or they can choose to judge you for not following a strict ritual regimen. Spirits like these are almost never going to change, and you're going to need to banish them from your presence if you want to practice your Draconic spiritual path peacefully, or just have a general peace of mind. Don't keep a spirit that is an active detriment to your mental health around. That's not fair to you. Let's see. There are many different ways of banishing a spirit from your space or your presence, though as an Indigenous person, I'm going to say right now, do not smudge if you are a non-native. Just do normal smoke cleansing with herbs that are not sage, cedar, or sweetgrass. On the topic of smoke cleansing, be careful though when doing smoke cleansing in your house. Open a window, be aware of anything near you that may be flammable, and make sure you don't trip your smoke alarm, since that's just not a pleasant experience. I've heard you can also use salt to banish spirits, though I'm not sure how well that'll work in certain situations. Let's see, now with all this talk of dragon spirits and guardians, it's important to mention that working with dragon guardians and spirits is not always straightforward or easy. Some individuals are able to connect with a metaphysical being and spirits better than others can. And if you are not in contact with a spirit dragon or a spirit guardian as you practice your draconic spiritual path, that's perfectly okay. You do not have to work with dragons or worship dragons for your spiritual path to be considered a draconic one. You don't have to work with another dragon in order to practice draconic magic, essentially. It is entirely up to you whether you even want another dragon to be involved in your spiritual path. You may just be a draconic identifying individual practicing a spiritual path. You may just appreciate the idea of draconic magic and rituals. You may believe in the existence of dragons, or you're using spirituality as a pathway to uncover more about your draconic self or to feel more draconic. There's no one way to do it. And you don't have to have any interest in working with draconic spirits, guardians, or gods. And all of the aforementioned reasons are perfectly valid reasons to practice a draconic spiritual path, and you shouldn't let anyone tell you otherwise. Now onto something else, though. It is extremely important that you practice your draconic spiritual path at whatever pace you feel is most comfortable. Never overexert yourself or burn yourself out by engaging in too many rituals, setting out too many offerings, contacting spirits too much, engaging in too much meditation or astral travel, or whatever you may practice as you walk your draconic spiritual path. It's very easy to get overwhelmed, it's very easy to get burnt out, and it's understandable, though you gotta take care of yourself first. The universe or your draconic guardians are not going to shun you for not having the energy to follow an incredibly strict ritual schedule. Part of why it's so important to find a draconic guardian or a spirit who's understanding of your energy levels and reminds you to take care of yourself first. You cannot practice your draconic spiritual path at the best of your ability when you are not feeling your best. Practice self-care, get some good rest, do things that make you happy and make you feel refreshed. No spirit, god, or guardian worth their salt and crystals will shun you, scold you, or punish you for doing what you need to do in order to take care of yourself. If they do, banish them from your presence. They're not worthy of your presence. You don't need to work with them. You're not obligated to work with them. So, some individuals believe in the false notion that all dragons can be strictly defined by element, type, color, or shape. Dragons, as we all know, dragons are an incredibly varied, unique, and diverse group of beings and should not be strictly defined in categories or by element. Some dragons can, but this is not applicable to all dragons. Do not listen to career Wiccan writers like DJ Conway who tell you exactly how you need to practice and how exactly all dragons are, and oh, if you deviate from my knowledge, you're not a real dragon. Like, no, don't listen to that. With that, you should avoid books and sources written by authors like DJ Conway or other New Age spirituality writers that present their personal truth or beliefs as universal fact. For those who do not know, DJ Conway was a career Wiccan, or pagan, whatever, who claimed to be an authority on all knowledge of dragons and draconic spirituality. She does not believe that dragonkin even exists. She does not believe that any of us are valid. She thinks we're all lying to ourselves. This is an incredibly angering quote from her book, Dragon Magic: Call on the Clans to Help Your Practice Soar, to show proof of my claim. So, quote, humans cannot physically or astrally become dragons or be born as hidden dragons or become masters of dragons. Likewise, dragons do not become humans. Humans are far below their intelligence, end quote. Pretty shitty quote, I agree. Presenting oneself as a complete authority on subject matters pertaining to spirituality always leads to negative consequences. Every experience with spirituality, the paranormal, and the metaphysical is individual and unique. Personal experiences with spirituality cannot and should not be placed in a box, nor should personal experiences that do not match up with preconceived notions of quote-unquote proper spiritual experiences be scrutinized. I think it's wonderful that everyone has their own unique spiritual experiences. I think it's wonderful that everyone has their own way of practicing spirituality, and I don't ever want that to change. And I never understood why there were people who always scrutinized others for practicing spirituality a different way or whatever the hell's in their head. It's always important to respect the spiritual experiences of others, even if you may not agree with them personally. And I just think it's wonderful to see the diversity of spirituality in the community. So, in the end, do whatever makes you feel comfortable in regards to your draconic spiritual path. Do whatever feels most comfortable for you. Do whatever your guardians feel is most comfortable for you, as long as you are also comfortable with it. It is your spiritual path, so do not let anyone tell you how to walk said path. It's your life, it's your spiritual path. That's the best takeaway from this. It all takes time, and don't be afraid to ask someone who you trust, who you absolutely know is not a gatekeeper or an elitist who sees themselves as an authority on spirituality. Just don't be afraid to ask for help from people that you trust and know will not tell you what you should and shouldn't do. That seems to be everything on my script. So I'm going to go ahead and look in the panel discussion chat, and I will allow others to come up on stage and speak regarding their spirituality, spiritual practices, whatever they want, feel comfortable speaking about, as long as it's age appropriate. Oh, Zeppy, you should talk about some of your spirituality.
Hey, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
That DJ Conway quote is wild. I've heard of was that person wasn't super good, but that's the first time I've actually heard anything directly from their book, and that is just amazingly bad.
Yeah, there's so many quotes from DJ Conway's book that are just absolutely insane.
Is it normal to actually want to get a copy of the book just to read it, just to see how bad it is?
Oh, not at all. I don't think that's perfectly normal.
Wonderful. Well, I do love your panel. Thank you so much for your for hosting it. I just don't have much to say, but the DJ Conway quote is just wild. What
Yeah,
else can I
it's
say?
crazy.
Okay, well, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Yeah, understandable. Thank you for sharing.
Bye for now.
Zappy.
I do nothing. What
Well,
what did you want me to speak about specifically? Because there's a lot.
I know you practice spirituality a lot, so whatever you feel is you're
Uh,
comfortable
I
sharing here.
I guess what I can say is that for me personally, I've been getting a lot back into my spirituality, and that's mostly due to Eric helping, which is good. I'm glad. I'm finally at a point where, real quick, that my mental health is more under control than it's ever been, and that's actually aided in me doing more spiritual stuff, which is good. I attend weekly practices where I go to meditate or focus on mediumship practice and other things like that. If you want to work at your spirituality, it's kind of like brushing your teeth. There has a lot of maintenance to go along with it, and also finding time to always keep your skills sharp, because if you don't use it, you're going to lose it within standing. You can always get it back. Um, I think it's also important to know that there's many different ways of spirituality. A lot of the people that I work with in my groups, they're very Christian centered, which is fine. They can have that. That's not me though, and everyone's really chill with me as well. Like they don't um push me to believe in anything perfect, which is good. I don't have an indigenous backup crew like Lunath does. I am also Maya indigenous native, but I'm very disconnected, whereas Luna is a little more connected to her culture and her spirituality, where I'm just kind of hanging out in the ether. What I've kind of found is that as long as you do special things like remember to always shield yourself, keep your protections up when you're working in the spiritual world, that will aid you. Remember that however you cleanse, there's many different ways to cleanse. You don't, again, if you're not indigenous, I highly suggest you don't use sage or Palo Santo. Using things like crystals can help you cleanse. One of my favorite things is if you get a spray bottle, fill it up with water, leave it out during the full moon, and then for 1 hour during the daylight, you'll have moon water, and that moon water will help you cleanse your home. Just spray it around the house, say a little prayer. feel that the water is going to protect you. I actually incorporate my draconic self in these times where I cleanse the house. I use the moon water. I use little Palo Santo because I can, and I also am a fire dragon. My fire breath tool is very important to me. So when I cleanse an area or try to protect it, I breathe and pretend as if I'm breathing fire into that space. Breath work is very important in spirituality, and that's I use that. And it's funny, my other peers notice that if when I do these things, they don't know how that where that power comes from. They're like, oh, it's just me, it's just me, but it's they don't know that draconic yet. So that's most likely what it is. So incorporate your draconic self in your cleansing, because being a dragon, we are very much respected and feared in the spiritual realm. um, so most beings don't recognize that that we should be something that like we do recognize that we should be something that we should be that they should be afraid of for the most part, which is a good way in aiding in your protection. So that's like one of my favorite things. Make sure that you don't take energies with you. Some energy work and Reiki work is also important no matter what stage you're at or who you are. It's important to learn at least how to keep your energy cleansed and clean and balancing yourself, and making sure you're not carrying baggage from other people or things. I also, again, if you're a more shamanistic person, stones will be very beneficial to you, but they're beneficial to everybody. You don't have to use all these stones and buy all these special things for your work. It's whatever calls to you. I always recommend using selenite because selenite's like everybody has selenite. Okay, that's the rock that's gonna cleanse your other stones and energize and charge your other stones as well, and also serve as a thing of protection. I personally keep a lot of quartz around, and uh it starts with an L. I forgot the name of it. What's the blue stone with an L?
Lapis lazuli? I think I said it wrong.
Lapis. I keep a lot of lapis around because that aids in like metaphysical psychicness connection and mediumship, and I feel like I always need help with that. In the end, the strongest thing for you is also trusting your discernment and your intuition. It's really developing those tools as well. I can't tell you on how to practice spirituality no matter what you are. Those are just like the basic things, like make sure you cleanse, make sure you shield, make sure you breathe, make sure you meditate. Like those are very like rudimentary things that anybody could do and everyone should do in order to keep those up. So before I start talking anymore, I think that's all I can share. And like for me, I'm also strange because a lot of people tend to follow and work with deities. I'm the only person I know that's just kind of free range. I respect other deities, no matter what they are, except for the Christian God, but we'll get into that later. Um, Even angels, I don't mind working with angels on occasion. I've met a few, and they're strong, but they're chill. They're chill. I just kind of keep away from them a bit because I don't think they always like me. Um, but yeah, I don't work with any deities, but I still am finding ways to like I can still speak to the dead if I want to. I can still like see things that have happened in the past or whatever if I work at it. Like I'm still learning myself. I'm fairly good at like working with decks. I always recommend that people find some source of divination tools because those are also very helpful to speak with your guides. I test them out on Eric first. He's my guinea pig. But I'm fairly good at that. I don't usually use tarot decks. Oracle cards for me work best, but everyone finds their own like groove with stuff. But those will also help in developing your craft and your spirituality and connecting with yourself and the spiritual world around you. So, yeah.
Yeah, understandable. Thank you for sharing, Zippy.
Yeah. Sorry, I was respecting to Ryu. Your intent does guide you. So if like I'm spraying the moon water, for example, on like my safe because I want to be protected from people trying to steal it. I let that energy into that moon water and I feel that as I'm spraying the thing. I could even say a little prayer like, let this moon water protect my money, let this moon water protect what is here and what is mine, and things like that. So that's part of intent. Discernment and intuition are the other ones that you really need to work on as well and develop if you want to become competent. Okay, oh yeah, that's it.
Understandable. Thank you for sharing.
Uh-huh.
Did you want to say anything, Ryu? Alright. Hey, Drek.
Hello.
Hello.
We had a question, actually. Specifically, Dale had a question. This is going to sound kind of silly, but does anybody have suggestions? Y'all were talking about using somewhat um, less commonly considered means of performing rituals than a lot of people are even aware of. So Dale's question was, what about using Lego in a ritual?
You can use anything you want in a ritual, whatever you feel that you have attachment to, whatever you apply energy to. Anything you want, really. You can use so many things if you want.
Okay, awesome. That pleases him. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Stage is still open. If anyone wants to speak up. Hello.
Hello. I guess I also kind of have a question. So I've tried to sometimes I have difficulty understanding and perceiving spiritual experiences that aren't limited only to myself. Um, Whenever I'm in, what is it? Sorry, I completely lost my train of thought just there.
No worries.
Hang on a second. So I have trouble, understanding and perceiving those experiences without majorly second guessing every part of it, and just like having all those things. And it's made everything really difficult because sometimes I've done rituals and things, and I've had no idea if I've how do you know if you've contacted a dragon or something or anything, are there better ways to know that if your intuition is not good? Because my intuition is not good.
Understandable, and there's not really any way to know exactly for sure whether you're being contacted by a dragon guardian or something else. It's just a lot of spirituality is going on what your heart feels is right, what your heart calls you to do. Especially because there's no way, mostly no way that you can absolutely tell for sure if you're being contacted by a spirit, because there's really no tools you can use. The only thing you can really go on is your intuition. So I say just go on your intuition the best you can.
Can I add
And I
something?
guess I have gotten a little bit better at using my intuition, but that's only for very, very specific things. So I kind of have a sort of animistic worldview where I believe that everything kind of has a soul. And one of the ways that manifests is whenever I collect small figurines and statues and of dragons and things like that. And one of the things is that they will generally name themselves almost. Where it's I don't know. I'll just be looking at them, or just acting around them, and all of a sudden, a name will just pop into my head, and suddenly oh, before that wasn't their name, and now it is. I don't know how much of that comes from me, and how much of that comes from I don't even know how to classify those, but for example, I have this red paper dragon hanging on my wall. He's not here right now, but recently he named himself Rochefort after the villain character from the Three Musketeers, which I find hilarious because I haven't read the Three Musketeers. But yeah, I don't know. And that's the closest thing that I've gotten to anything actually that I'm really able to trust. Because
Yeah.
I'm a chronic overthinker about everything.
Oh, I feel that.
I think if I can add a little bit of my sense here is I work with that too, and I think that's because I'm a really scientific person in a lot of ways. I like to really nitpick and like get to the bottom of things of why things how work and the scientific method and all that crap. But on the other hand, with spirituality, you kind of have to like let that stuff go a bit, and it's hard when you're hardwired to think that way. It was really difficult even with my own awakening and everything of that sort. But for that stuff, and I'm still learning. I'm a lot better than when I was, and I started doing better with my spirituality back in like May. And I've come a long way even from since then, but I still have doubts about like whether or not Eric or whatever is speaking with me. That's why it's like I always recommend that you get a guide or spirit companion or somebody that you know you can trust. Somebody that is around because they will help you with discernment a lot. And like I can ask, are you really there? Are you really there? Is this really you? Like a billion times, and he won't get tired of answering. Another way is by doing that, is also using, like I was mentioning, tools before, like spirit divination tools. So you can do this with like pendulums, um, runes. Let's say I knew a person that was actually just using random objects that you had, and she was able to read stuff from it. I like I say, I use oracle cards. That helps as well. And using things like that will also help you confirm and not confirm things. You can also get help from friends. One of the things that I do when I go into my little spiritual pocket when I meditate, I have other friends that do that too. I've actually taught people how to do it. And when I enter that like spiritual plane, they're there and we're talking to each other while we're like meditating. I'm like, okay, do you see me? Yeah, you're the red dragon. Cool. Are you the person who has the moth wings and also you're wearing a Christmas hat? Yeah, how'd you know I was wearing a Christmas hat? I just felt it. So another thing that we learned in our mediumship practice is sometimes if you just like if you have other people and you're working with other people and you just say things and just say it, even if you don't feel like it's right, say it anyway because it it kind of teaches you and practices you to affirm those feelings and that you're not all crazy and it is coming from somewhere. And it's a process. It's to trust that part of you. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a lot of trial and error and a lot of discernment from friends or groups, including yourself. So I definitely suggest following those things, and that will help you as well.
Yeah. Currently, my draconic spiritual path is mostly just focused on drawing on my own personal power as a dragon, mostly for protection spells um and just things things along that line. Like I remember there was when I was in high school, I had this friend group, which one of the people in the friend group was like a pretty experienced witch, and they're actually also otherkin, but like they're not a dragon. Um, and there was at least one point where we were all like, where we were having like these spiritual. Certain group members were having spiritual issues with negative entities following them around, and I was able to use my draconic power in tandem with my friend's like spiritual know-how to protect the whole group, and it worked really well, and that worked really well for me because like I know that in terms of spirituality and stuff, like my draconic self has a lot of power, but I'm not very good at using it.
Understandable.
Uh,
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, what I want to introduce, a lot of the things that have been said here seems to be about almost in getting in contact with almost strangers. Well, sometimes you get lucky, you get someone you know. But what I want to talk about is like a practice that's almost cultural and almost like a religious culture. And what I'm talking about is in Buddhist practice and a lot of Asian practice, you pay homage to your ancestor and sometimes you pray towards your ancestor. And how that applies to draconity for me specifically is that me would have this connection towards my cardia type. And just to make sure that we're on the same page, a cardia type is it's a past life in which your experience had such an impact on you that it wholly or partly formed your core identity and personality even to this day, but you don't identify as the being from your past life anymore. What that means is that there's a certain distance and separation from you and that past life. And all of the things attached to that past life, you can call upon us if you are asking for guidance. And the ancestor, in a way, is kind of the sibling, the family that you have with that specific past life. So, in applying this practice of paying homage to your ancestor, you can pay homage to your own past life too, which when you know that past life is the dragon, you are calling upon a dragon who your soul already knows about. And you have a better chance of getting the right connection because the thread was there already presented.
I see. Oh, that's my train of thought for a second. Thank you for sharing it. That was really interesting. Did anyone else want to speak?
All right, I just wanted to make sure everybody else got a chance to speak before I went on for who knows how long.
Understandable.
So I guess should just say up front, I'm going to talk from the perspective of being a second degree witch and being in the progress of having my high priestess of the old coven helping me to start a new one. I posted that picture, which is my ritual circle for doing pagan rituals back there. I've kind of created a little fairy glen back there. They hang out back there. But what I actually wanted to get into was a little bit of my own spirituality. Unfortunately, I can't say that I have any dragon guides or any gods really guiding me because I don't know how to put this, but they usually come to me to ask to help with something. So I really have a little bit of an inverse relationship with dragon deities because I guess I'm considered to be one or something like that. I am a dragon guardian. I'm just going to say that straight up, and also say that I am my own. I've never heard of DJ Conway before in my life, so maybe they're kind of an irrelevant person to me. But I can guarantee everybody that dragonkin exists. I believe the dragons that are here, we come here for a purpose or a reason. Usually there's something that I can't say we all have a purpose for being here, but a lot of dragons come here with purpose that they don't necessarily are born knowing. For example, I'm not entirely sure why I'm here other than I'm supposed to find other dragonkin. But my cultural heritage is Celtic, and I don't smudge. I use salt. What do you call it? Kupo, the one who is what do you call it? What's behind me for a bit? What is the Native American of the house? So, but I wanted to comment on the salt thing because how you actually use salt is that you want to put it around the area that you want to protect. So when you're using salt, get as much as you need. If you're doing your whole house, then you just want to go along the side of your house and put the salt all the way around the perimeter. Another way to work with salt, and the kind of salt, you can actually get different kinds of salt to do different things. Like sea salt, if you're working in a water ritual, if you're working with water spirits that are more oceanic, you can actually use that not to ward them off, but also to attract them if you wanted to. Salt is very intent based. Its basic use. Its basic use is to ward, but that's not the only way you can use salt. You could put salt in a bottle to spritz on things that are having issues, as long as they're not, the salt itself is not going to affect that. Like if you have something that's like say a plushie that's has had something come inside of it that shouldn't be there, because you'll be surprised how many times, especially if you're pouring energy into it, that plushies end up with a spirit. You could actually have a water bottle that's salt water, to spray it and get the spirit out of that particular item. If there's any other questions, I mean, well, I'm not. I come from a Celtic tradition, so that's where my answers are going to come from. But I mean, I'm also willing to answer questions about it and my own spirituality, which I kind of started talking about last panel. You know.
Yeah, understandable. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. I'll mute for now unless somebody has a question.
Understandable. Did anyone else want to say something? Well, we have time actually. I think since our next panel isn't for another hour, I think I'm gonna find some of those horrible quotes from DJ Conway's book. Let's see, what's it called again? From her book, Dragon Magic, call upon the clans to help your practice soar.
Eat ass.
Oh, that reminds me. One of the other things I wanted to mention is that the Fae have someone very similar to that on Tumblr named Otherly Creatures, who wrote a book. It's basically, they basically have this fairy guide named Atri, and they started writing a book about their interactions with them. But if you bring up Faekin in front of them, she'll be like, Fae don't become humans, humans don't become Fae. They're all entirely different. Fae are billions of years old. They would never incarnate because this reality would be so boring to. Now I have to agree with. This reality is fucking boring. But like she's literally selling a book about Fae that doesn't have anything to do with how Fae actually are. I cannot stand it when people come out as authorities saying that this is how, making a generalization on an entire race. They make me want to eat my own eyes.
It's really irritating. I feel that.
I'd say that's even happened in the other kin community as well.
Yes.
Big enough to eat. Well, I mean, if I had time, I could eat a whole person. Or if I resize, I can resize. So the biggest size I have ever tried is the size of a football field. But like that's about as big as I can get. My average size, as I probably said before, is shoulder riding size.
I see. Here's a well, not good though, kind of rich quote from DJ Conway's book. So this one says, like many other beings, dragons will take advantage of anyone who wavers in their commitment or who is unclear of the intent of a ritual. Yeah, right.
Genies.
Right back.
Okay. Also, another quote: "Dragons are masters of concealment." I am not a master of concealment. Lunat is. She cannot hide to save her life.
How hide a dragon that is like, I don't know, 1 foot takes up an entire. I've seen some huge dragons. Let's just put it that way. I've seen some dragon gods that you would be able to see from orbit.
Yeah, that's how Lunat is.
I
She's
think-
bigger than galaxies.
Yes. I think I should meet your other dragons at some point.
Yeah. Let's see, what other ridiculous quotes are there? Here's another one. Dragons think of time in terms of hundreds and thousands of years. While our idea of time concept runs to the hundreds, this is because dragons live so much longer than the normal human does.
Uh,
Like, okay, source.
I'm gonna contradict that in the sense that I've stopped thinking about years. The year when I arrived here on Earth, the year was about 180 days. It was spinning around its axis much faster than it is now. So, to me, what is a year? I prefer the galactic year, which is 1 billion years.
Understandable.
Approximately, from the perspective of Earth, of course, the stuff in the middle of the galaxy goes faster. But from the perspective of Earth, you can see the outside of the galaxy going around one full rotation, approximately 1.007 billion years. It's close enough. And if you want to talk about things in terms of dragon ages, that's a more useful metric than these, what do you call it, using Earth years. She's a noob.
Okay. I just realized something.
What?
So when it first came out and I was reading and I realized I was a dragon and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I've been into spirituality for maybe as long. I just didn't get good at it until recently. But I knew about all kinds of occult and deviation and things like that for ages. Probably just as long as I've been a dragon. Well, since I've awakened. So, but I had a flashback to when I was in, I think it was a Barnes and Noble or a Borders at the time, in the mall, and I picked up a book that talked about dragon magic because I was like in 8th grade and I didn't know shit, and I was just like, I'm just gonna see if I can buy this and have it. And I was thinking about you talking about this, and I was like, let me see who that book is by. It's DJ Conrad.
Oh no.
I actually have one of her horrid books. To be fair, I haven't really read much of any of it because I can't like focus to read to save my life. But I have one, and I think it's like something with the dragon magic or practices of dragon magic or something. I picked it up in the New Age section of Borders or Barnes and Noble, thinking that it
Okay.
might be helpful. But I did not read very much of that book. I still have it, but it's like I don't know. I don't know why I do, but I didn't realize it was the same author that we were all dunking on today.
Fair.
You know what? I don't even want to read this DJ Conway person's works. What I want to do is find them and engage them in a freaking debate. Because when she come up and tell me Dragon Sea thing is in tens of thousands of years, I'm going to ask her straight up, years in what period of Earth's time? Years in the Mesozoic or years in the Precambrian? Those are all different lengths of years. Please use something more, what do you call it, metric to us multi-billionaires.
Yeah. Lunat is like ageless. I'm pretty sure she's older than this universe, so.
It's easy to be older than this universe. This universe is an infant. 13.7 billion years is like one, what do you call it? quintillion, no, even further, septillionth of the amount of time that this universe is going to be around and having events actually occurring in it.
Oh, heck.
It's not that long of a period of time at all.
Understandable. Oh, this quote's gonna make you all hate DJ Conway even more. Here's the quote. Dragons are male or female determined by their DNA, just as humans are. My two-spirit ass, my non-binary ass would beg to differ.
What do you call it? Sorry, I'm being interrupted by Murmy, who's a mushroom, and she's saying dragons don't have as many genders as mushrooms, but they have many, many, many genders. They have more ways of reproducing. If you go out there and you meet other dragons in other parts of the multiverse, you're going to find some dragons that just reproduce via contact. You can't classify them as male or female. They just touch each other and decide they want an egg, press one finger to the other, and then when they put their hands on the ground like that, an egg forms right there. What gender is that? Her idea of a dragon is so limited that it's driving me crazy.
Yeah, Lunath, Lunath she's not a biological being. She doesn't have a gender. She doesn't have a physical sex. She's female presenting, though. She has no gender. I think that would blow DJ Conway's mind if she wasn't taking a dirt nap right now.
Murray say her gender is 4,669.
DJ Conway would have gone insane if she figured out that two-spirit people exist, non-binary people exist. Oh no,
like she's gonna be like one of those translators. What do you call it? Dragon J.K. Rowling.
Literally.
You mean TERFs?
Yeah, pretty sure she's one of those.
Of course, you couldn't consider her a dragon because she doesn't think dragon can exist.
Yeah.
Like, how do you get into pagan practice? Knowledgeable. Now, I've been trained from a high priestess that was also trained from another one, and the tradition goes back a while. And I know what I learned from that. And one of the things is that everybody has their own path. Everybody's going to meet spirits that are somewhat related to them, because you attract spirits that have been around you in previous lives. So she may be in contact with dragons that are like her, but if she's not looking at the rest of the multiverse, if she's not exploring outside her own little circle, then she's simply not going to know.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you get into a pagan practice where you become a TERF or something when you also should be interacting with Fae, that a lot of them don't have specific genders. A lot of them are like, they wouldn't even know what a gender was if you asked them.
Yeah. DJ Conway's just freaking ridiculous. Oh, and here's another absolutely great fucking quote by DJ Conway. And this is referring to dragon disputes. All disputes, trials, and major decisions are made by the council. The council is ordinarily comprised of the elders, but these can be replaced by clan vote for certain reasons. There is a council for each dragon clan to judge breaking of the rules of that clan. If problems are experienced between dragon clans, the dispute is then taken before the higher council. which is made up of an elder from each clan. And keep in mind, she thinks that all dragons do this.
Nice RPG setting, ma'am.
Literally, this is like some D&D.
Bro.
You know, a
Literally.
lot of this feels like she was, I don't know how, but even when I first read this book when I was like 14, and I think I only got past like the first few pages, and she was talking about how like she believed in dragons ever since she was little because she had dragon guardians and spirits watching over her, and she saw them as a kid and nobody else did. And I don't know, there was something in the way that she was talking and describing these things that felt very OOC world building kind of thing. It feels really fluffy. There's something about the way that she writes that seems more fantastic more than realistic.
I'm not going to discount her
Weird.
experiences because, by damn, I saw things and I still see things. There's never been a time in my life that I can remember where I have not been able to see spirits. But I feel like that I'm not going to discount her experience, but I also feel like she's talking from a very limited perspective.
Yeah,
I don't mean to. I just think that there's something about it that doesn't feel genuine. It feels fluffy to me.
I get that. I see both sides. Regardless, though, I'll go ahead and find another ridiculous quote.
I mean, I'm not even going to discount her own spiritual experience, even though what is coming out of her mouth about it is latent bullshit. She's on a path that's very different than. But the thing that's really offending me here is that she's monetizing an experience. I mean, it's like that's another thing that when I was talking about otherly creatures, there's basically the Fae version of DJ Conway out there, basically making money on writing a rag about some authoritative experience that isn't really authoritative at all. It's her experience as a person interacting with other spirits, and she's chosen. I have never read a single one of her work, but it's clear that she has chosen to keep a very narrow perspective on it because her narrow perspective gives it a kind of exclusivity that so you can. She's building a cult around it. Let's just call a spade a spade. She's building a dragon cult around this stuff.
Oh, literally.
I don't feel like there's enough people that actually care what she says to build a cult.
Yeah, though I do know a lot of people take her words at face value.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I do that with really anything.
People are a lot of people look at the not to get political for a moment, but look at the politics out there in our last election season. It's very clear that people have become lazy about the information that they take in, and they just want to be told. And the thing is that if you start walking a spiritual path out there, one thing that you're going to find as almost a commonality in all spiritual paths is that you will learn and progress at a rate that you're trying to learn new things, and if you learn new things, you're going to encounter things that are entities out there who are vastly different than the other one that you were expecting, because you got a very I'm not going to say the universe is infinite. That's a really big number there, but it is close to it. And for you to, when you create something that's smaller than that and try to build what I would call a canon, a continuity, you're basically trying to create an elite club there. That's the foundation of a cult. And I've seen this happen before in other king communities where basically what gets built up is a canon for what they all believe. And then once you got that canon, and you start enforcing it, the canon is great. Totally. The canon that you're building around yourself from your experiences, as long as you're not invalidating everybody else's, that's just fine. That's basically all a canon is in your path is this, what would you call it, determinations that you can make from your own experiences with spirits, what you learn. But that's what you learn is a small box with everybody else's boxes out there. So
each experience is individual and unique, and just narrowing your view is just it's not good for you. It's not good for anyone, you know.
Disservice to narrow your view. I had a unicorn in system named Unthrera that would try to narrow our view, and she left once the rest of us said, we aren't going to do that anymore. You are limiting us. And then she left. And I know where she is now, and that's fine, but don't be my own personal Dolores Umbridge. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, looks like Moss had a question in the chat. Question for panelists. How do you handle other dragons pressing their beliefs beyond personal bounds? For example, I saw you in the astral. I can see your soul, etc. kind of behavior.
Oh my god. I love this one.
I ignore them.
I can see spirits in the astral, but I don't make a point of it. That's one of the reasons I stopped teaching, because people will get like that, and I don't want to be that. If you ask me questions, then I will do my best to answer, but I don't want to put myself out there anymore, because you get one person who asks you this question, and then you answer, and then they're like, but I don't see it like that. And I said, well, this is your path. I am giving you advice, but I'm not authoritative. The only person, honest, I'm going to say this straight up, the only person who can be authoritative on your own path is you. Nobody else. I mean, other people have other paths. All they can do is share their paths, just like I'm doing right now. I'm sharing what I've experienced, but those things can enhance your path, but they cannot, like, you can believe, you can agree with some of my beliefs and believe it, but you can't walk my path, because that's mine, nor can I walk yours.
Yeah,
The
for
whole
sure.
purpose of a forum like this is for us to get together and talk about what we've got in common, what's different, and we don't have to do like American politics these days and be all like, well, you believe something different than me, so you are the enemy. No, we're not each other's enemies. We're each other's guides.
So I think this has happened to me for ages. This has been literally going on since I was even like a small child. There's a lot of reasons why. When I was younger, I guess if I want to get kind of into it, but when I was younger, before I even awakened, I kind of always wanted to be a dragon anyway. I guess that could have been the first red flag. And I had a friend in grade school that would like enjoy taking me for a ride with things. And I was young and stupid and gullible and believed in everything because I was a small baby. And one of the things that they said was like, "Oh yeah, you're secretly a lost dragon. You have dragon parents in this other land, and they miss you, and I'm the only one that can communicate to them." And blah 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 blah. And I was like, I was having my own like main character hero epic. And this was like in grade school, mind you. This was like first grade to fourth grade kind of
Holy
time.
hell.
Yeah.
First of all, go ahead.
So that was something, and again, it was kind of going with me because I already felt like I wasn't human anyway, but I wasn't like cognizant enough myself to really expand on it other than that and just saying, hey, it's pretend, let's just deal with that. I don't tell a lot of people this part of my story because I don't feel like it's relevant. So y'all are kind of unique in hearing this. And then later, like she had me brainwashed into that whole thing. And then later, when I grew up, and I was from about because my friendship ended with this friend in like fifth grade. So from like fifth grade to sixth grade, I was like, I'm human. I've always been human. I am human. I'm embracing that I'm human. I'm not a dragon. I was like fixed on that. And I was like, I have to accept that that's my life and that's how it is now. And you know, what happened before was just a silly little delusion because I was a small child and everything. And then I still didn't feel right, and I awakened in was it seventh or eighth grade? I don't remember. It was May of 2009, whatever the fuck that was for me. And because I was like, I can't fucking stand it. I don't want to be a person. I want to be a dragon. And then I realized I was a dragon all along. And that was the whole awakening part. Later on, I've had so many people after that, like dragons I've talked to, because my main thing after I awakened was finding out why I'm like this. What's my species? What's my culture? What kind of like race and stuff do I hail from? What is it like? I want to know. Do I have a past life? Is it my current life? Why am I like this? I had a lot of questions. I still have a lot of questions. Um, and it's something that I've heard like, oh yeah, you have parents. I heard someone else say, oh yeah, you got dragon parents in another realm. They miss you. They'll see you soon whenever you die, I guess. So I've been told things like that. I've been told like, oh yeah, I remember seeing you in the astral or whatever. We were friends back then and blah 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 blah. And a bunch of other stuff. And most recently, I think back in like 2020 or 2021, maybe when I was in my apartment. Might have been afterwards, actually. I can't remember if it was. I think it might have been after I broke up with my ex. So maybe this was like 4 years ago. I had a guy who, speaking of cult, he actually was he had his little cult going on. I don't even remember exactly how I found him. He's a black dragon with red eyes. I think his name starts with an L. Be careful of him if you see him. And
I don't know, have any idea
I could not tell you. I don't quite remember his name, and it's probably for the best because he's not a cool guy. He was 100. He had a bunch of like little friends that were also his followers, and they were all convinced not only that he was a dragon, which is fine, but he had convinced people that he could shapeshift and everything. And it was scary talking to him because he was like not only like fully convinced that he could shapeshift and everything, but I would like quiz him on occult and spiritual matters, things that I thought were like first grade. Like, I think I remember talking about Nostradamus at one point, and he was like, "Who the hell is that?" And I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? That's like first grade SpongeBob." And at one point where it started to get really spooky for me was when he was saying, and this was around the time I think I had broken up with my ex. He broke up with me, but that's beside the point. It was really tough on me. It was really hard for me. And this guy started saying, I'm a black dragon. I remember you. You were my mate in my past life, in our past lives, and we found each other again, and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, remember when I was talking before about using your intent and using your intuition? You gotta use that a lot in this community because it's thankfully I've been a seasoned veteran at this time. And I was like, ain't no way I'm believing that. I was like, first of all, I don't think I have a past life as a dragon. I stand by that 100%. I don't believe I have a past life. I have no past life memories. I have none of that. Sorry to disappoint everybody, but that's just kind of how the apple falls. So I was like, that doesn't make any sense. That is like, and he's like, yeah, these are old memories and stuff. Blah 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 blah. I'm a black dragon. I knew you. You were my mate, and all this stuff. And I was like, I'm not feeling it, bruh. I'm not. I'm not. I don't vibe with this. With what you're going for. So after that, I think something else happened, and I was like, I'm getting out of this. I can't deal anymore with this kind of questions. So when people start claiming credulous things like physical shifting, run. If people start saying, "Hey, you're my mate," "Hey, I know your dragon parents," "Hey, this is like your main character OOC moment," like that's more or less not well. And unfortunately, it's not just me. I have seen this happen repeatedly and continuously in the otherkin um, life and everything. I've been a victim of it. I have seen others be a victim of it. And it's a very, to be completely honest, it's a very dangerous community to surround yourself in a lot of ways, especially if you're not mentally stable yourself. So you really have to use your intuition for the most part for a lot of this and be very careful. And a lot of when I was a dragon and going through understanding the comedy, I was an adolescent. I was trying to understand myself, and I was also not mentally well. I was very vulnerable to be taken on really bad rides, and I had been. The community has abused me. I will say that. So you do have to be very careful with the friends that you pick and the people you surround yourself by. There's a lot of weirdos out there. There's a lot of people who aren't well themselves and will try to hurt you and take advantage of you.
Oh yeah, and I'm glad you brought it up because I guess we can't really have a Foundations of Draconic Spirituality panel without mentioning that there are bad people out there, and you do need to be careful who you talk to, and practice safety.
Exactly. There's a lot of people that crave power in this um, community, unfortunately.
Oh yeah,
And there's
absolutely.
a lot of people that aren't very mentally stable themselves for whatever reason or another. And one of the easiest ways is to have power over people who are also vulnerable, looking for companionship in this community. You do have to be careful.
Definitely important to be careful. Yeah. To answer the initial question though, since I kind of slipped my mind earlier,
Yeah, go on.
when someone tells my being that, oh, I've actually met you before, Lunat, I know I knew you in a past life, or I can see your soul, and I just say, you don't know my being, you don't know who I am, you don't know my experiences, you're just making shit up. You stop that right now, or we're just not going to talk. One of the two things. I'm just very blunt and just saying, you're not going to do this to my being. You're not gonna try this. Sorry. If they continue, I block them.
I think one of the things that I learned getting into spirituality outside of the comedy in general, but just the spirituality, something that was told to me is that no one can tell you what you are and who you are with things that have happened. That's something that you have to figure out for yourself. Like, I can't tell you if you're dragonkin. I can't tell you if you've had past lives. I can't fill in those blanks for you. I can guide you and I can help you, but I cannot definitively tell you those things. Those are things you just have to learn for yourself and get good enough to just be able to feel those things out. You know?
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
even if you're in a case where you might feel that, or where you might recognize somebody spiritually, you can't push that. If some kind of recognition like that, if if anything is to come of that, it's got to become like without, how do I put that? Naturally and in this light. Don't hold that kind of thing over people's head.
Yeah, I know that there have been instances where others have found their past mates and their past lives.
Yeah.
Some people just take it too far, like, oh yeah, or like some random person that you've never met. Oh yeah, I know you, I remember you in life. Like, okay.
Yeah. Let's just put it this way: if somebody if you have had a connection to another person that you meet in a previous life, you're not going to know that right away. It's not a random person isn't going to know that. Straight up. It's something that you discover over time.
Oh yeah,
There's just
absolutely.
too much disconnection between lives. So what do you call it? Death is like a kind of reset button for people to be able to experience other things. So you forget a lot you forget whatever you don't keep between lives. Straight up. So for somebody at random to just like come up to you and say that, it's like, how do they know? That's the first thing I would ask. How do you know? And I just know it's not an answer.
Yeah, that's understandable.
To add on to that, though, even after you've known for sure, certain somehow that they are someone you know from a past life, you need to remember not to let that knowledge overshadow what you have at the present, this life,
Yes,
and the new connection that you can make between the two of you.
Definitely. We are we're almost like 40 minutes over the whatchamacallit
Here, as long
panel
as
time, so which is fine. Our next panel starts in 20 minutes. So did anyone else want to say any final words before I go ahead and end this panel? Rary? Rary? Rary?
I'm sorry you hear the quail. We're relentless today.
Yeah, I heard the quail in the background and all
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's sicko mode today.
Yeah, I wish I could channel Altanok better though. Maybe one of these days though.
It's weird. I've been saying it takes time to everyone today, but I'm telling you, it takes time.
It really does.
You gotta like practice with it. Like the first time I channeled Eric, I was very like broken, and now it's like he shows up and it's like, okay, you can't even really tell to me.
Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and just end the panel here, and then we can move off into Draconic Voice whenever we end the stage. So thank you all for attending this panel, and thank you everyone for adding your words of wisdom or your experiences or your advice. It's much appreciated, and I'm glad that this panel was able to spark a lot of good discussions regarding Draconic spirituality, and I'm glad we were able to rip on DJ Conway a little bit, as we should always do during Draconic Summit spirituality panels.
That's like our like blessing.
Oh yeah, it's our obligation. So thank you all, and we will see you in the Draconic voice chat.
For the opening ceremonies, maybe we could start them with dissing of DJ Conway.
Literally.
Fixing the event. Make me so fucking funny. Alright, everyone leave. Move. Move the scaly hides. Away. Away with you. The scaly, fuzzy, feathery, skinny, whatever it is you got hides.